Hi, I'm Frank Masiosi, and I'm here today at the Firehouse with Chief Eric Evers, Deputy Chief Don Nelson, and Battalion Chief Paul Imbimbo. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the history and a lot about where we're going with a new firehouse. So, Don, if you could kick it off with just a quick departmental overview.
Sure. Thanks for coming out to the Firehouse, by the way. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Summit Fire Department consists of 32 career members. We have 4 shifts, 7 people on each shift. We have a battalion chief, a lieutenant, and 5 firefighters on each shift. We have 2 in fire prevention, and then myself and the chief fill out the 32. We have our administrative assistant, Nancy Fabrizio, who is the backbone of the fire department when it comes to administrative stuff. And some of the services we offer, we obviously we do fire suppression. Fire prevention is a big part of our service here. We do education with younger kids in the schools. We do pre-planning, all that's through fire prevention. Again, fire suppression is our primary mission, but we also do hazmat response, technical rescue response, first responder response, which is a backup for the first aid squad. When they're busy, we go out and do medical calls. We do all kinds of calls, from automobile lockouts to the typical cat in a tree. So we don't train much for the cat in a tree, but we do it. And of course, we do all the training to support those services. And of course, we have daily things to do around the firehouse, like vehicle maintenance and building maintenance, and again, training and all this whole host of other things that we could talk about for hours. But I don't want to take up too much time.
Sounds like you're busy.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Okay.
I think last year we did 2,804 calls, 2,800 calls for the year. So we're pretty busy for such a small department. So.
Wow. So, Chief, this is not the original firehouse, is it?
It's not, no, yeah. Actually, our roots go back to 1890.
Okay.
That's when the Summit Fire Department first came and established Fire Department City Summit. We had a few firehouses around town. One of the most noticeable ones was we occupied in 1892, and that's directly across the street from the Summit Diner on Summit Avenue. That we operated there for many years. We did move to this building in 1901. Our current firehouse the original core structure was built in 1901, so we occupied that building for a while. We did move back and forth between the building here and the building on Summit Avenue. We had a couple other smaller houses around town as well. But one of our first motorized fire trucks, when we moved from this building, we had to go back to the building on Summit Avenue because they were the height for the fire trucks. So we had some old footage of small fire trucks that we had. But then initially, and then in the 20s, we were back and forth. And then we actually moved back here permanently in 1948. They built an addition on the original 1901 firehouse, and we call it the 48 side of the building. So in 1948, we moved back to this site on Broad Street, and we've been here ever since.
So this building that we're in is 71 years old.
Yeah. And there was a second addition built in 1968.
Okay.
As we grown from the 48 side, we built an addition in 1968. We did some minor interior renovation in the early 90s, but really 1968 was the last time this building was actually, any kind of major construction was done, was in 1968.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, why do you need to move?
So
Looks pretty nice.
That's the biggest question, the why, right? Why we need the fire. We've outgrown this building. Over the years, our call volume has increased. The demand for the fire service has increased over time. Our equipment has changed. Our apparatus has changed. And with that, this building just become too small. There's a variety of reasons. We had some studies done on why this building didn't fit our current needs, and we had results of those studies. But basically, we've outgrown it. Infrastructure is old. The 2 additions attached to it, space utilization, safety concerns, how we back in and out of the firehouse, some of the handicap issues in the firehouse, all those reasons, storage, they all compiled into why this building just doesn't fit our needs for today and also moving into the future of the fire service.
How were the studies recent?
Yeah, so we had a study done, and the first study was called a needs assessment study, and that was a look at our current building. Our initial goal was to try to maintain our location on Broad Street, maintain this building. So we had a needs assessment study done in 2012, and that looked at the building. And very quickly into the study, we realized that this building did not fit our needs. Too expensive to renovate, and even if you could renovate it, the lot size was too small. The mobility around the firehouse with backing the apparatus onto Broad Street was too close to Broad Street. The makeup of the building with storage and the current industry standards of Firehouse very clearly did not make it feasible or affordable to renovate this current site.
Okay.
So based on those findings, we did a feasibility study. We looked at what the fire department needs to operate today and down the road, how much space we need, and out of all those areas we looked at, we came up with a typical square footage based upon training needs, apparatus needs, operational needs, safety needs, circulation around the building. All those components are built into a model of what we would need square footage-wise. Okay. And then that square footage-wise, they looked at what places in town can accommodate a building of that size.
Okay.
What's also keeping into our response time. We're very sensitive on where the firehouse is situated in Summit because we have to maintain, we call it a standard of cover, how fast we can get to a call in town. So we have to be, that kind of shrunk up the area where we need to be in Summit. So that study, based upon that study, that took us to our current rendering and our current design that we have now for a new firehouse.
Now, the people who do this kind of a study, they specialize in firehouses?
They do, yeah. So early on, our team with Town Chief Bimbo and Deputy Chief Nelson, our goal from the get-go was to try to hook up with a architectural firm that specialized in these buildings. So the same firm did our needs assessment study, they did a feasibility study, and then we recently just hired that firm to go into the next phase of designing our new firehouse.
Okay.
And all they typically do is design emergency service centers and they design new firehouses. They're kind of state of the art. They have a lot of fire safety involved in their buildings, a lot of training components are involved in their new design buildings.
Now, you said there's constraints on location. You have to be within a certain area. Is it basically the downtown, or what?
Yeah, basically anywhere within a quarter mile of where we currently are.
Okay.
We would still fit into our standard of cover, our response models. So the current site now that we picked is down on Broad Street, between Salerno, Duane, and the tier parking garage. There's an out-of-town commuter lot. That was the most feasible area that can accommodate a building of our size.
Okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of the new building.
Okay.
Paul, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. As the chief said, we looked at our current operations and had to decide where we wanted to go in the future. So our main focus was to build a building that functions and it supports our operations. We want to do that with safety in mind and efficiency in mind. So we looked at how we operate now. When we service the vehicles, they're sticking out on the ramp. They're blocking the sidewalks. It puts our people, it puts the public out into Broad Street. So one of the concepts we came up with was, since it's a similar lot, it's not too deep, that the bays, the vehicles exit through the sides. So we have an administrative portion of the building across the front of the lot, and then the back of the lot where the apparatus bays are, the vehicles will operate out of the sides so that they're not going directly out into Broad Street. It provides us safety, it provides safety for the public. We had issues in this building, ADA issues. We're not really compliant other than the lower floor here that we couldn't address in a building of this age without spending way more money than was feasible. We have issues as far as gender. We have a women's room on the first floor and that's it. We've had staff here that were females, we've had dispatchers, we've had firefighters, and we had no facilities for them other than a bathroom and shower upstairs that the guys use as a community room, bathroom and community shower. We had no facilities for them. So those were issues we had to tackle, and really the only way to do that was through a new design.
Paul, let me interrupt for a second.
Sure.
You mentioned ADA, which struck me as interesting. None of the firemen are disabled, so...
No, but we do have public in and out of the building all the time. And just to get, if someone with a disability from the front door to the administrative office, we have to take them through a back corridor with a ramp. There's really, the bathrooms aren't set up for them if they needed to use a restroom while they were here. So that it's not so much for us. The firefighter space, the operational space doesn't have to be compliant, but the rest of the building does.
Okay.
And we also have issues, and I didn't realize it until one of the seminars we went to, they were talking about it. When a retired firefighter comes in and wants to see the rest of the crew, and they can't make it to our crew space because of an ADA non-compliance. So they can't get to our day room and visit with guys that they used to work with. So on a personal level, that,
Yep.
it kind of affects us as well.
Wow, okay.
And another thing that we looked at as far as design was for the safety of our people. we bring a lot of contaminants back with us from a fire, and right now they're just out here where everyone is, where we operate, where we bring the public through. So the new designs look at capturing that and not bringing it into our living spaces to provide safety for us moving forward. We had to look at issues where we have stuff that we've made it work now. We have spaces that we use for multi-purposes. That's by need. When we move into the new firehouse, it'll be by design. So space that functions as an entranceway could also function as an education space where we can meet the public, speak with the kids, show them our history, show them different things as far as fire safety in the home. So without bringing them into the operational space, which could pose some safety risks for the public. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Our comfort, our privacy, as well as protecting the public and serving them properly.
In terms of square footage, how much larger will the new firehouse be?
I think currently we're
Yeah.
17,000
Yeah,
square feet.
we're adding, our current building is just about 18,000 square feet. And our proposed new building is going to be 33,000 square feet.
Oh, so
And most of that square footage is due to the larger end room size we need to accommodate our current apparatus and to have also safety features for air monitoring, things of that nature. So and then also our EOC, our training rooms, kind of bring it up to industry standards. So
If I could add, the first phase we do when we start design is we sit down with the architects and we go through our operations, the vehicles we have, the equipment we have, the personnel we have, and the functions that we provide from here. And then they do what they call a programming phase. And they look at each of the aspects that we do, firefighting, rescue, administrative functions, and they assign a square footage based on industry standards. And then when you add that up, that's where you come up with the size of the building. So it was a whole process. It's not just kind of at random.
So Paul, tell us a little bit more about some of the features.
Okay, well, like I said, we were looking at function as well as safety and efficiency. So what we did, we kind of combined spaces that we could use for multi-purposes. So one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to do a lot of our training in-house. We go outside, take classes in different places, but we'd rather have it done here. So on both sides of the apparatus bays, we have a mezzanine, which is utilizing the space above service rooms and above our locker areas and stuff. For training. We're looking at building up a mock-up of a cityscape wall with windows and different finishes that we could use ladders, and we could do search and evolution drills in there. We could do bailout drills with anchor points on the ceilings, as well as across the bays having a mezzanine that we could do technical rescue training. We deal with confined space, we deal with trench rescue. We could have props built into the building so that we could do the training on site without having to send our people outside to do it. Another thing that's very big in the fire service is safety for our people as far as cancers that are prevalent in firefighters that aren't seen through the general public.
What kind of cancers are those?
All kinds of stuff. It's everything from
Asbestos?
We're finding out that it's all the products of combustion that are getting absorbed into our skin. So it's skin cancers in areas that are exposed, testicular cancer, thyroid cancers, things that aren't prevalent in the general population, but are hundreds of times more likely in firefighters.
if I can chime in real quick,
yeah.
the biggest issue in the fire service that has changed years ago, 20, 30 years ago, most of the buildings, most of the houses that were burned are natural materials, natural wood, cotton, things of that nature. Today's fires are a lot different, a lot more chemicals. Everything we own now has plastics in it, laminates. The houses are built with glued beams. All those materials off-gas and makes up the fires a lot more toxic makeup of fires than were years ago. They burn a lot hotter, they burn more volatile. The smoke actually can burn because all the chemicals in it. And a lot of those particles, instead of inhaling it, are injected through your skin. So years ago, you inhale smoke, that was the big danger. Nowadays, even though you can inhale stuff, a lot of it is actually deposited on your skin, and then it actually gets injected into your skin. And that causes a lot of issues with firemen. There's a lot of studies going on about how firefighters are getting cancer from all the particles that are associated with the new building materials and all the plastics that are so much involved in everybody's home now.
Wow, yeah.
Fires years ago would take about 20 to 30 minutes for a room to fully involve with fire. Nowadays, about 4 to 6 minutes, just from the pure makeup of the different chemicals and compounds that are in houses versus 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
And that kind of all adds to the whole, safety of all casting of our turnout gear.
I actually took a class yesterday, and the results of some studies were pretty astonishing. 69% of all firefighters will end up with some sort of cancer. So generally speaking, right now, out of the 3 of us, 2 of us will end up with cancer sometime during our career. Numbers are off a little bit, but 69%, so roughly 70 out of every 100 firefighters ends up with cancer. In Boston,
From what I've read, that's about double the normal population.
I'm not sure what the normal population is,
I've heard
but in
40.
Boston, for a period of about 2 years, every 2.5 to 3 weeks, a Boston firefighter was diagnosed with cancer, an active firefighter, and then a certain percentage of the retired firefighters. So one of the aspects of the new building is to try and help us prevent that. Now, we're in an inherently dangerous job. We can't eliminate everything. But what we can eliminate, we're going to try, to the best of our abilities, obviously. And the new firehouse, hopefully, with the design, will help us make that a better situation. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better.
Yeah. One of the things I learned when I was on council was that the most dangerous job, broadly speaking, in the United States is municipal worker, because you've got firemen, you've got police, you've got garbage collectors, and they're all at risk. And apparently, statistically, it's more dangerous than mining and some other dangerous things. People don't know this.
You would think with all these hazards, why do we do the job? And we like doing it. That's why we're here. I mean, we might be crazy, but we like what we do. So we try to make it as safe as we can. But again, it's inherently dangerous. So we try to take as many precautions as possible.
Yeah.
But on the cancer note, Paul, just go into a little bit more about the features of how we handle our turnout gear in a new building.
What we realized is the stuff we've been using to protect us at the fire scene is now starting to affect us when we get back. You can see we have our gear lined up on the wall here. If they had a fire today and came back and just put the gear on the wall, it would off gas, and those carcinogens would be in the air, and we'd be affecting ourselves and again. So the new building, with the design, it totally encapsulates that area. So we'll have gear lockers and gear decontamination areas that are totally on separate ventilation systems and heating systems than the rest of the firehouse. So we come back from fire, we have the space to properly clean that gear, to dry it, and then when we store it, it's in an area that is totally vented to the outside. So it doesn't affect our living space, it doesn't affect the public that comes in, it doesn't affect the people that are working in our offices. And that's one of the things that our architect is leading the country in, is cancer prevention based on design rather than what we do on scene. It's a really big issue, and it's good to have somebody that's getting out in front of it and being one of the leaders in the industry in that.
Yeah. Let's talk about training.
All right, like I said, we have training props built in that to do physical training. We'll be able to do fire training, not live fire training, obviously, but we'll be able to simulate it with smoke machines and being able to throw ladders and do our technical rescue training. But we're also going to look at public education. We'd like to have a space that we could bring the public in, teach them, whether it's the elderly or children or families, and also training for our members. So we have a space that could be utilized for training as a classroom, whether it's us or people coming in, but also doubles as the emergency operations center. If we have a major event in the area or in the city, we open up that emergency operations center, and that's how we handle the problem in Summit. Deputy Chief Nelson's our emergency management coordinator. He could talk a little bit more about the EOC, as we call it.
Yeah, so our EOC right now is combined with our training room, but it's not of an adequate size. Generally speaking, when there's a larger scale emergency in Summit, or anywhere in New Jersey for that matter, if there's a state of emergency, our EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, is activated. And then we have different personnel throughout town, such as from DPW, Overlook Hospital, it could be the police department, first aid squad. There's different agencies throughout town that we work with, and we will meet in the EOC, and we'll talk about the emergency and what we can do there, what our forces out in the field need to support them. So all that information is done up in the EOC. Right now, it's adequate. It's not perfect. The biggest problem, though, is it's not ADA compliant. If someone from another agency needs to get upstairs, we don't have access for it. There's no elevator. So if someone's wheelchair bound or has a hard time walking, they can't get upstairs. So that's kind of a hindrance. The new center will have elevator access, hopefully, if it's all approved. But more importantly, it'll be of a larger size where we can actually get more, lack of a better word, stuff. We can have more TV monitors, better access to the outside from in there. We can have
Technology.
better technology than we have now because of the age of this infrastructure here. We have to add all kinds of stuff. We're in a new building. We can do that from the get-go, bring it up to speed. And it's important to have a large enough area where people can actually work and not interfere with each other when we're trying to coordinate, whether it's getting sandbags or getting porta potties or cots, whatever the case may be. During Sandy, our EOC was activated for close
days,
to
yeah, 4
5, 6 days, I think. I was out in the field. I wasn't involved with it then. But sleeping quarters were tough. There was no place for anybody to sleep when you have to be here for 24 hours for the EOC. Separate shower, separate eating quarters, away from the fire department operations. So we hope to incorporate all that into the building. Now, it sounds like a lot of space, but we're actually intermingling it. So it's not like there's a dedicated area, but it's not off use for anybody else, for the fire department. But it's important to have that space so the EOC can operate at its best ability. And it's important to have that.
So I have one very important question about the new building. Is it going to have a pole for firemen to slide down?
It will have.
It's gonna have
Well,
several.
okay, all right, good.
Yeah,
It's going to have several.
Wouldn't be a firehouse otherwise.
Exactly. We're very into tradition. That will be incorporated into the.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
well, actually, one of my pet peeves was and the chief and I kind of disagreed a little bit, was having the garage doors face the street. Because of the lot, you can't do that, obviously. I'm a traditionalist, so, but it's supposed to have some sort of a look like the doors are facing the street, but
Okay.
not necessarily will the doors face the street.
So Chief, tell us about the timeline.
Okay, so the timeline is, so in our our 2018 capital budget, we appropriated some money to hire the firm of LeMay Erickson Wilcox. They're the firms that can build our building. We've started the process.
They're not local.
They're not local, no. They're out of Virginia.
Okay, and they do firehouses.
They do. They're strictly they're state of the art. They do firehouse all over the country.
Okay.
They're well known. They're experts in their field, and that's kind of the reason why we chose them. They also give a lot more services than we had in other architects. We interviewed about 6 architectural firms before we chose LeMay Erickson Wilcox out of Virginia. But we started the process in January. Like I said, we hired a firm. That's called the design development phase, where we pretty much look at the floor plan of the building, go through every single room in that building and determine what is needed in every room, every space to support our operations today and also 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And that's design development phase. We're almost complete with that phase. That's hopefully done by the beginning of June. The next phase is construction documentation, where the architects actually take all the findings from the design development and put an actual blueprint together where engineers, electricians, plumbers can actually give pricing and give their input into the building. That phase is going to take us probably to the end of the 4th quarter of 2019. So probably like November-ish, that'll be completed. That phase, the next phase will be going out to bid. We'll put together documents where people can bid on it. When the bidding phase is done, when we actually award a contractor, then we'll talk about how we're going to fund the building. So the next part of that is actually funding, which we would do through capital funding. We incorporated $11.8 million into our 2019's capital plan. So probably once we award a contract, the city will issue bonds to fund the capital money.
So 11.9, are there any offsetting costs?
There are, yes. So obviously, when we spend the money initially, we won't even see the impact of that probably until our fire zone is completed. By that point, there's the Broadsheet West redevelopment that's going on. Part of that is looking at our old firehouse where we're in today, selling this building to a developer. There'll be small fitting costs from that. So there are small fitting costs that'll trickle down that $11.8 million. So by the end of the day, we probably won't see a full exposure of $11.8 million through all the offsetting costs.
Okay, all right, very good. And that goes out into the future?
It does, yes. But by the time the firehouse is done, we'll probably start to make the city the first interest payment. But then the city will decide if they're going to do a long-term note on it, which will go about 30, 40 years down the road because it is a big building. And we're also going to do, real quick, we're also going to do some fundraising. A lot of people from the public have asked us if they want to do some fundraising for us. There will be an opportunity to do some fundraising, support some other costs that won't be included in the initial $11.8 million.
Well, as we all know, Summit is filled with generous people. So
yeah, they've been generous. Just our department, other agencies in town, so we're hoping we'll have the same generosity when we, put the design on public record for our new building.
That's great. Well, thank you to all three of you for sharing all that with me and with the people of Summit, because I know they're interested in what's going on with the new firehouse. A lot of questions were just answered, so thank you very much, Jeff.
And I also say, feel free anytime, any questions at all, on the City Summit website, some fire department, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer any questions or any concerns the public might have.
Great. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks.
And thank you all for watching this episode of With Summit Fire.